Hello, everyone. Welcome to School After Hours podcast, where we talk about all things related out of school time program. I am your host, Jay Lee, and on today's show, we have the founder of hashtag I Am Impact, Mr. Nathan Houston. Nathan has over 20 years of experience in the out of school time field. He facilitates social emotional learning trainings and restorative justice trainings for educators and out of school time professionals. He is also the director of youth development at Mentor California. So it's only right that we have him with us today talking about social emotional learning and restorative justice and how we can use it in our field as professional practitioners of out of school time programming and educators. So before we get into our interview, let's go ahead and take care of Community Corner. Community Corner is a segment of the show that allows guests or myself to share tips, advice, or information with families, youth, and community members about the out-of-school time programming field. For this episode's Community Corner, I asked Nathan, tell us one or two things we should know about social emotional learning, but also how do we begin to practice it in our day-to-day?
Thinking about that question, social emotional learning, one, I love it because it's life, right? It's how we do life. Everything we do, you can think about the 5 competencies, if you will, of SEL, and they fall into that category. So I would say some practices. One is, and you kind of, with your follow-up question, kind of lead into what I was going to say was making it a part of you, right? Who you are as an individual. For me, when I got into SEL work, I thought about how I looked at it as an additive. Like, okay, now I'm going to add social emotional learning to my program. But then I realized that social emotional learning is already embedded in my program. Now I have to be intentional about calling it out, right? And being able to see where I see SEL. So when we think about self-awareness, right, self-management, social awareness, all those different things, our young people, staff, we're already doing these things and practicing these skills. We just don't label it as such as SEL. We just call it like grinding, right? Working, right? Loving on our babies. But when in reality, it's really social emotional learning. And so for me, the practice is that really helped me was to become the work, right? So to understand that I need to be more self-aware. I need to be able to learn to manage myself, my emotions, my feelings, and take those moments a part of the work, right? How am I feeling when I check into this classroom, when I walk into this space with young people? What's surfacing? What's moving inside of me? A lot of those things folks don't look at, or we just constantly like, we're thinking about the babies. Oh, I got to do this for the young people. I got to do this for the young people. But what about you? And so I always tell people to come one a couple of my workshops. I have one in particular that a lot of people like. It's called It Starts With Me, But Doesn't End With Me. And so as educators, one of the things that we can do is start with us as the leaders within the space. When we come up and we're showing up with young people, being self-aware, learning more about your identity, who you are, your culture, your background, your heritage, right? And then being able to manage yourself, like knowing that, there's certain encounters with young people where you may feel triggered, get angry because you think about something in your past, or they bring up pressure, a pain point for you, whether it's your skin color, your weight, right, your ethnicity. Those are things that can be pain points for folks if we're not aware of how we feel or the things that are going on. So for me, I would say the biggest practice is to become the work yourself and not just be a role model, but to be a real model for your young people.
Thank you for sharing that information with us. Now we're going to go ahead and jump into our interview. So Nathan, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in out of school time programming.
Absolutely. So I got my start after school program, started off as a participant. From a participant, I was a volunteer. At the age of 15, I ended up losing my father. My after school program was like, yo, we know that it's you, mom's little sister. And, in my neighborhood, my community, there was a lot of negative stuff to get into. So they're like, we think that you'll be a great fit for after school program. The young people, your peers already look up to you, admire you, they respect you. So I interviewed for the position at 15 years old. Then I became a program assistant for the Intel Computer Clubhouse. The Intel Computer Clubhouse was a program that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation had launched back in 2003, 2002, and they planted 75 Intel Computer Clubhouses all over the nation, and I think 2 in Africa. And so Sacramento had the opportunity to have 2 of them, and so Center for Fathers and Families, which is the agency that I worked for at the time, had one of those Intel Computer Clubhouses. So it was a program assistant. It had the top of the line computer software, video editing station, 16-track studio. So I got my start kind of with technology, right, at 15. And we're going from, and I know you probably remember this is, I was transitioning from dial-up internet, right, to now we clicking buttons, right? I'm clicking
Hey,
buttons
we
in the
in there.
internet.
We made it, y'all.
Yes, yes. I'm like, wait, what? I don't have to sit here and wait for this music to download. So absolutely phenomenal to have like top speed internet at my fingertips, right? So my role and responsibility was to teach young people, my peers, how to properly use the internet, Internet Explorer, right, PowerPoint, Word, and things like that. And then the other software I kind of learned as I was going, just playing around with the material that we had. And it's funny because I actually just found some of the CD-ROMs that had the software, which was like, wow, like this is what we were dealing with, right? There wasn't just download, click the code, and you download the software. No, you had to insert the CD-ROM, download it, right, and then go to another computer and make sure the code matched because you only had so many licenses, right? You can't be
Right.
bootlegging stuff. So I learned all that, right, at an early age, and then after being a program assistant for a couple of years, I was able to go to a school site, frontline staff. It was a literacy program that we were working with, 90 minutes of literacy a day. I ain't gonna lie, my young people like, yo, we gotta read some more. We gotta listen some more. So 90 minutes of literacy every single day. But the improvement with their reading was through the roof, right? So this is a program that was proven. A lot of English learner students that we had in the program were benefiting from it. From there, 6 months being a frontline staff, got a call like, hey, we got an opportunity to launch our own on-site school program in a school district, which was North Sacramento School District. And I took the opportunity. I'm not gonna lie, I was sitting there, right, 19 years old, took a couple classes at a community college. I'm like, yo, I don't have my degree or anything like this. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be an old principal, right? It's gonna be an old person who like, what is he doing here? And that ended up being a young principal, young white principal, young white
Oh.
woman. And she was like, you're everything that our young people need, right? So it's just like it was this affirmation and confirmation taking place. And so became a coordinator at the age of 19, supervising 6 staff. So I went from being like frontline to having my own staff of 6 people and overseeing like 150 kids in program. So it was like a big change for me,
It's different.
right?
It's different.
Yeah. But I would say, right, all the preparation, all the things, and all the participation in program before had led, prepared me for that point. So
Mhm.
then I was a coordinator for 10 years. Um,
Okay.
and from a coordinator, I love being the coordinator position. I believe like coordinators, right? They are the key to pin to after school programs and making sure they operate. And so for me, I also see them as that bridge, right? To be able to pull
Mhm.
in the community, the school, the daytime program, the after school program, and then the
Mhm.
parents. And so was a coordinator for 10 years, 3 different school districts here in Sacramento. Loved every moment of it. I will say my favorite age group, though, middle school. So for me, I ended up bouncing around and got put at a middle school. I was like, oh, this is where it's at. Like, I love middle school, right? I
Right.
can go a
Right.
little bit deeper, but I still ain't got to deal with the grown mouth. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I think I'm going to stay right here. So was at middle school for 3 years. Then I interviewed for a position of director of training for the org. And I was a director of training for 4 years and just recently left
Mhm.
within the past 6 months. So now I am the director of youth development,
Okay.
for Mentor California, and loving every single moment of it. And then also the founder, I Am Impact. And so that's why I'm here today, representing
Hey.
I Am Impact, impact over everything. That's what it's about. So
That's
I
right.
have my start after school program, right, as a participant.
I know that's right. And it's good to see like people there's value in working to that place and that point, right? Because in your volunteering, you learn how to interact with people, also a number of other things. And then as a coordinator, you know how to build your relationships, like you said, with the community, with the staff at the school, not just with the principal and the assistant principal or administrative staff, to kind of bridge that gap between after school and community, but also including parents as well. Like, what are your needs, or what do you feel like your child needs, and how can we bring that to them? So being that centralized person is key, but also it helps everybody in the process because we're here to serve not just the children, but the communities as well. And they're a big part of that. Not just our children, but also the adults within the community.
Absolutely. But I would say volunteering, one of the biggest takeaways from volunteering was the cleaning, right? So like that
Mm-hmm.
really prepared me to be on a school site where my best friend was a custodian, right? Because I understood that they've seen our program as like, oh man, it's the after school program, and it's the day program. So the custodians making sure the classrooms, everything is on point for the next day. And then you have the after school program that gets out later. So now it's like, I got to work with this program. So, but being a volunteer, one of my biggest responsibilities was cleaning. So making
Mm-hmm.
sure that stuff was put up, right? Equipment back, software back. These are and leaving the place better than I found it. So that actually prepared me. I'm doing that at 15, 16 years old. When I got to a school site, I think my last site I was at, I had the key to it probably wasn't, I don't know if this is, frowned upon within the school district, probably so, but because I don't have my credentials like that, but it was like,
Right.
I had the key to the alarm. I locking the
Hmm.
gate, right?
Right.
Closing the gate, like all of that stuff because of the relationship that I had where they were like, Nate got it, right? He got a master key to all the classrooms,
Right.
everything that, has access to everything. So, but that goes back to, that volunteering. That my takeaway was, you got to put in that work.
Right. And that speaks to character as well. You know what I mean? Like, you don't get those type of benefits without someone being able to speak to your character. And I think sometimes
Absolutely.
that's the thing that we miss. Like, we just want the keys. But before you get the keys, there's some things that you got to
Come on.
do. You a whole
Come on.
stranger.
Yeah.
I'm not giving you nothing.
Right.
So it's important to build those relationships. It's important to network. It's important for people to be visible. And I feel like sometimes that's what people forget is to not just be visible by your work. Be
Yeah.
visible by
Yeah.
being involved. Be visible by being present, even to some things that you feel like are unrelevant to you specifically, but it may be relevant to the children, it may be relevant to the school. Make sure you show up.
Absolutely. I had a staff person, and it stuck with me. She said that her dad told her this story, or more of a quote, right? Her dad told her, always sign your work with excellence, right? And that stuck with me. Always sign your work with excellence. And to this day, right now, I'm in this new role. It's kind of an issue, like adapting now, because I used to be that person. I was my other organization for 18 years, right? So
Mhm.
I literally grew up in this program, and now I'm in a space where I am a stranger and I don't know everything. So now, like, it's hard for me to sign my work with excellence because I'm like, I don't know, right? So, but going back to that point of before you get the keys, right? A lot of people do want the keys, but let sign that work first. Let me see what that work look like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All day. All day. So, with going through your career in after school programming, how did you come across social emotional learning? And then how did you begin to apply it to where you were?
Absolutely. So I think my biggest traction or epiphany when it came to SEO was character counts. So I give a shout out to character counts in the curriculum. So we started doing character counts in the after school program. And for me, I've always been about character. And it's funny that you said character. My people always ask like, has been your key to success? Nate, like, how did you get young people to do this, do that? Like, I've always focused on character because I realized that before we can get to the education, getting kids sitting down in their chair, right, paying attention to that lesson plan, there's some character issues, right? The character flaws that young people have, that staff have, right, that I have, that need to be addressed before we can go there. So for me, character counts was one of those things where I can't even remember, but I believe the district ended up purchasing it extra, right? And you know how it went extra, like, oh, let's give it to the after school program. So I'm like, oh, okay. So we had these dog tags that had each pillar of character on them. And so what I decided to do was I went to the principal and said, hey, no, I actually started every day during their supper time. So the kids had their meals after school. We were recognized. I had to have my staff recognize one person from their classroom each week. So every Friday during the supper time, we were giving out a dog tag. So if this month we're focusing on fairness, each week, right, each class would have 4 folks that they would nominate. So that Friday, so young people started getting turned up. Wait, oh, I got my dog tag to say fairness, right? Because I was out there being fair. So it was this big hit. So then what happened was, and this is the cold part, I'm going to be honest, right? Very transparent. One of my young people was picked on, right, by a teacher that said, why does that kid got a dog tag that says respect on it? It's not respectful in my classroom. And it was
Mm-hmm.
like this issue where I'm like, wow, you are really one, you're a bully because you're picking on this young person and not bigging them up for being respectful, whether you don't see it in your classroom or not. They've earned it, right? Because we didn't just give it to them because we didn't have anything better to do. This young person earned this dog tag respect. And so because of that, what ended up happening was the teachers took notice to kids getting dog tags. So now, right, they come after school program, they're getting the dog tags, but they're wearing them throughout the day because after school gave them privileges, so they could be in the front of the line. They get their supper first, right? So they like VIP. So the principal actually approached me and said, "Hey, I see these kids are getting these dog tags. Like, what's going on?" I said, "Well, we're doing class meetings with young people. We got the dog tags each week. We nominate a person." And he was like, "Hey, can we do this during the day?" I'm like, "Absolutely." So we had a meeting with all the teachers. We had a staff meeting, and I ended up starting going into the teachers' classroom, teaching them how to have class meetings with their young people and then being able to give them, how to recognize the different pillars when they see them. And then they started nominating young people every Friday as well. So during the lunchtime, because I'm there all day, I would actually recognize the kids during the lunch. So now some kids are getting doubled up, right? If they're in after school
Right.
program, they getting two, they walking out of the right. I'm double respectful, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Put some respect on my name. But it was amazing. It was amazing to see the transformation. And then I seen too, it was a culture shift, right, from the whole school, not just for after school program. Because what we were seeing was, I also ran alternative suspension program at my school site. So the young people that I had in my after school program, they didn't get suspended from my program. They didn't get kicked out of class from my program. So we started having conversations with the school. They're like, why is it that Nathan could come to program and be absolutely fine, but when he's in his classroom, he's getting kicked out, right? Every 15 minutes or an hour, right? So what we realize is that character, right? There's it's the relationship that the after school staff have with the young person. So now we got to better our relationship as teachers to the young people. And so we started to cultivate those relationships. And it was a beautiful thing to have receptive teachers, right, to an after school site coordinator leading the way. So I'm like now meeting with teachers and showing them this is how you build relationship. This is how, right, picking and choosing your battles, right? Understanding, getting to know your young people, right? That young person's not just being defiant. And I always see that when there's a need that's not being met, right? That's the issue, right? It's not just that the kid want to wild out on you. There's a need that's not being met. So if we could go a little bit deeper and build an authentic relationship, we'll see transformation.
Right. And you hit the nail on the head about building culture. That's one of the things that was important, is important when you are building such a program that what you're using is going to be implicated during the day. That's how you feel like it is all in one page. It is all in one swoop. Everybody's doing the same thing. And it makes not just your after school program stronger, but it also helps make the school stronger as well, because you have a cohesive plan, and that's how you are working together as a partnership within your community, which is the school. So I think some people don't know how to A, respect it, but also be humble enough to come to and ask, like, hey, I see that this is working. How can we begin to implement this during the school? Or even if it's working during the school day and you want to apply it to after school, switch it up a little bit, but it follows the same principles. Okay, how do we begin to focus and, make sure that it works during after school so it's a full cycle, like we're all on the same page when it comes to culture development and character development in this environment?
Absolutely. And it's a collaboration, understanding that too. We're an extension of the learning day, right? We're not supposed to be exactly like the learning day. So shout out to Alberto Becerra, right? Like my principal at the time, who said, like, I want you to come in and train my teachers. And it was like that, for some folks, like, why he's not, who is he to be coming in here and telling us? But the community that we built and the relationships that we built. And for me, when you talked about culture, Janice, I learned every young person's name on that campus. I knew every teacher on that campus when it came to parents.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking about not just kids who are in my program, right? That's where some after school staff, I'm going to build a relationship with whether you're in my program or not, because then when it comes to maybe I need to get my numbers up, right?
Mm-hmm.
All the kids know Mr. Nate. They're going to know, like, oh, I want to be in the program. I had my waiting list, right? The whole school year. Like, you can't get in. So,
Right.
because we know, right? After school program is limited spaces. So, for me, culture is big. I'm talking to everybody, building a relationship with everybody, even the teachers who were difficult and challenging, like who gave pushback. Because I'm like, at the end of the day, why are you here, right? You signed up to serve young people, so you get with the program, right? Or you just gonna be uncomfortable around me.
That's it. I ain't going nowhere. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. You'll be all right. You'll be fine.
Absolutely.
Oh gosh. My next question for you is, as you learned social emotional learning and applied it within your program, how did you begin to push forward doing your own thing with I Am Impact?
It was so organic. I can't front. Like
Can't
it was just
pinpoint it. Like
organic.
it's just
It was just organic. Like so I'm Impact was this idea, this thought in 2013. So 2013, sitting on my couch, and I'm like, man, if I just had more education, if I just had more money, if I had a better relationship, right? All this stuff, if I just had, and I was sitting there, and I'm like, wait, I'm Impact. Wait, I am Impact, right? So that's exactly how it happened. I'm sitting on my couch, and I'm like, praying, I'm like, wait, what? Like if I just had this, then I'll be able to do this and that. But I realized for me, going back to the character piece, right? So when I realized that social emotional learning is really also about character as well, and that self awareness, it really started with me going inside, going inward when it came to learning more about myself and being self aware about my feelings, right? What's going on, my background, my culture, my heritage. It was stuff that I was ignorant about, right? And still ignorant to this day, if I'm being honest. Like, so what I realized is I started going inward, and the more I went inward, the better I became at my lesson planning or engaging with my staff or being able to call stuff out because I'm like, oh, they got confidence issue, right? That's all self awareness, right? So if we can learn to pull on that, so I am impact this idea, this concept was just now became a belief like I am impact and I am going to make a difference. And then, folks, I realized within my org, I was doing a lot of training. Just people, they were sitting in
Organic.
this, yeah, those staff that they were about to, that last leg, like let's send them
Right.
to Nate's site, right? Because if they can make it, if they can't make it at Nate's site, they can't make it anywhere. But
Mm,
because I'm working with folks who, right, they coming from you name a job industry, right? They're a mechanic, right? But they now all of a sudden want to work with young people. They send them to Nate because I would lean into folks. Oh, okay, self awareness. So they're good at tools. They're working good with their hands. They're good. I can lean on that skill
mm,
set, right? What young people don't like cars or what dream car they might think about cars that they have or playing with cars at their household. Maybe I can lean into the staff person and that skill set and have them, maybe they could build a car in the classroom, right? Now we're gonna get into STEM. Now we ain't even gonna go there yet, right? But that's how my mind worked organically, where it was just like it would happen. And so I am impact. I started doing training. So like character counts. One of the school districts actually brought me in. They asked me to train all the after school staff and character counts. And I would say that was one of my biggest gigs to be able to train. I think we had like 70 something school sites, but they going through rotations of coming through our character count sessions. That's where I got my start. And then the calls just start coming in like, hey, we noticed that you were here, or we heard about you, and that's how I end up getting to the level that I am now. I was speaking here in California. We have the California After School Standards, Quality Standards, a program, and talking about the quality standards. Somebody heard me talking about, and I don't know about all programs, right? So for me, we didn't really have no standards. Like I got to be honest, we didn't have no type of standards for our program outside of attendance, right? Kids, attendance and behavior. So I got notion. I'm like, oh, 2014, these quality standards dropped. And I'm like, oh, I'm super juiced. Like, I'm really like, yo, like I'm in this meeting with CDE, Expanded Learning Division, and all the after school programs, the county Office of Ed. And I'm excited about it, right? And they looking like, because nobody's excited as I am, right? I get
right.
turned like, yo, we
Right.
got standards.
We
It's
got a whole
like,
plan.
yeah,
We gotta figure this out. We gotta follow this right here. This it.
right.
This it.
So I'm juiced about it, and the folks are like, "Yo, like, who is this guy?" Right? Then they had something called the CQI, Continuous Quality Improvement Plan, that they wanted to drop. That all programs got to collect data, and I'm like, "Oh, I do post-it notes with my staff. Like, we collect data. This is how we shift our program in real time." So they like, "Yeah, like, who is this?" So no lie. California, Anisha, shout out to Anisha Steinberg, works for the California Department of Education, Expanded Learning Division. It was CQI was her baby, and so she's like, she heard me speaking, she tracked me down through a sign-in sheet, right? She ended up calling my best friend who was at another site. His name's Nathaniel, my name's Nathan. So she ended up calling him. He was like, oh no, that's my boy Nathan. He's at another school site. So she called me, and she's like, yo, you got to go. We want you to sit on the panel, a social emotional learning panel, at the Boost Conference, the Best Out of School Time Conference in Palm Springs. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, so these things just started happening organically. Like, now I went from just training my school site to now they're like, we
Mm-hmm.
want you to sit on a panel at the Best Out of School Time Conference in Palm Springs, right? And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. So now I'm sitting there with folks who've been in the game 30, 40 years, and that's how it transitioned. I'm like, yo, I could do this. And
Right.
I got the experience where I'm gonna be able to like lean into the experience that a lot of folks don't have that I have, right? Working in the low poverty-stricken areas, having to overcome, working with a little bit of resources, making stuff work. And I would say my program was off the hook. We was having a great time with them $5 pieces. You know what I'm saying? So we split the cutting them things up into squares. He was like, I just got crushed. He was like, hey, we're gonna work with it next time. We got you, right? But it was again. So I looked at how SEL those were things that I was applying to my life. Like, okay, I'm looking at, okay, I am Impact. I want it to be, it's going to be a brand that focuses on SEL and restorative justice, but right now it's really just it's about me learning, right, and growing and really using my experiences and looking at that wheel up in front, right, that, oh, social awareness, how can I apply that in this competency, if you will. So that's how it happened organically, and it's still happening and evolving. And now I will say I had to label it because I'm one of those folks that can, adaptability is one of my top strengths, right? So what can happen is I started getting pulled in too many different directions. Like, oh, Nate, come do STEM. I'm like, oh, that's not my wheelhouse, right? Like, come do physical education. Because I could get folks excited about it, but that's not my wheelhouse. So it's like, I can do a physical educational training and talk through it like I know it, but that's not my wheelhouse. So it's like, nope, we got to like define this. It's going to be SEL and restorative justice. That's what we're going to be focused on. That's our babies.
So that is a good point for us to pause for a moment and take a break. So everyone, don't go too far. We're going to go ahead, get some water, take care of some personal business, help keep these bills paid. And we will be right back. So don't go too far. Give us a couple of seconds and we will talk to you soon. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Thank you for taking that small little break. We are here to go ahead and finish with Mr. Nathan, Mr. I Am Impact. He talked with us a little bit about his program, how he got started in after school programming, and then how that led to him doing workshops for SEL, which then came about him doing his own business, I Am Impact. So from there, Nathan, I wanted to go into the healing circles with you because I've seen you do them at conferences, and the last one that took place at Boost this year, you had a lot of great feedback on your healing circle. So just give some people some background about the healing circle and how can they begin to use restorative justice in their programs.
Absolutely. So getting started with restorative justice and the healing circles was an interesting journey. So my job at the time actually had sent me to a workshop. They were like, hey, we're looking for a CBO to become trained in restorative justice so the CBO can actually begin to do healing work for their community. I thought that was a dope concept and idea. But then I was like, oh, it's going to be one of those hokey pokey, get in there and right, it's not really what they say it's about. And the folks who are facilitating are going to be weak and don't be able to, can't relate to the community, all kinds of stuff. So I went in there with a negative mindset. I ain't going to lie, right? When you're an educator for a while, you start attending different workshops, you start seeing stuff, you like, I could have just been at my school site, right? I could have been doing my own thing, but I went. So went there 5 days, 5 hours a day. So I would say that shout out to Ms. Rita Alfred, who was my trainer in restorative justice, and particularly in healing circles. Ms. Rita Alfred comes from the Bay Area of California, so San Francisco, Oakland area, and she's been a restorative justice coordinator for a long time, has her own business and restorative practices, and the goal was to train with one of our partner school districts, and so the goal was once I'm trained, I can come back and start to do those healing circles with the community. And I would say right off the back, I have to say that it was opposite of everything I thought it was going to be, right? I thought it was going to be weak. I thought I was going to be annoyed. I thought I can't wait till it's over. I absolutely enjoyed every single moment of it. One, because within these circles and within this practice, I got to see administrators in a different light, right? I got to see cops in a different light. I got to see custodians in a different light. And I got to see just overall teachers and administrators in a different light. And Miss Rita Alford brought this community of people together, right? Different walks of life, but who are all our central point, our focal point is what? Young people. And so what we were able to do was to really go deeper and to remind ourselves like why we got into this work, whether you're a school, a school resource officer, or you're a custodian, right, working at a school site with young people, a teacher who's, teaching young people, a principal who's overseeing a school site, and going through this process at the end of the 5 days, Janice, let me tell you, I felt like I'll go camp with y'all. Like we could go hang out. I'll invite y'all over to my house. I've never wanted to invite administrators and teachers and folks from a school site over to my crib like that. Like, we cool while we here, but like, this is where it ends. Going through these healing circles with these folks, by day 5, it was like, this is mad love. Like, this is different. Like,
Right.
yo, if I learn how to do this, like, this can transform our organization. And being honest, we like, what organization doesn't have problems? But we were having some problems at my current org at the time, and we needed a healing circle. And I was like, I can't wait to bring this back to our organization, to do this with our frontline staff, with our site coordinators, with our admin team, because this is going to transform programs. This is going to transform relationships and culture. And so got trained in it, started doing. I went, first circle I did was with my organization. And I'm not going to sit here and lie and say we did a whole bunch and things started getting better. We did one, right? No, we did two. We did one immediately, right? When we went through this healing circle, folks felt like so good after. Folks were like, this is what I needed. Like, I was so glad to be able to get that off my chest, right? I was so glad to be able to share how I really felt. And we did that one. And of course, I wanted to keep going deeper, right? Because it's like, ooh, when you see now, if we could just continue to do this, build upon this work, didn't happen. I ended up going and doing some other circles. Shout out to Dr. Michelle Hamilton, who was also a part of this practice, who was the director of student services for one of the school districts. So again, we were in this room with folks who the shot call of school districts, right? And to see that this process, the circling process, really changed the dynamic, and it changed how we engage with one another. It allowed us to be more transparent and vulnerable, but it created a safety net, right? And it created a space, a sense of safety to where we could be honest about how we really felt about whatever it was that we were talking about at the time. So in going through that process, the I'm Impact Healing Circles were born. I'm like, again, right? Remember before, it was like, oh, this is great. And I love to put people on, but Miss Rita Alfred gave me the book, Spirit of Intimacy by Saban Fusame. And she
Mm-hmm.
went to hand me this book, Janice, and she wouldn't let it go. Like, she went to hand it to me, and I grabbed it, and then she's like, and
Mm-mm.
she's just looking
Mm-mm.
at me, and it's awkward, right? So I'm like, yo, like, why you
Like
give
what
me
the
the book and
fuck?
if you want to give it to me? What do I do? And so she's like, Nathan, I see something in you, and I know that you're going to take this work, and you're going to continue to circle forward. So me being who I am, because I jump into the middle of books, I jump in the end of books. I don't never really just start at the beginning. I get look at the back. I'm like, oh, what can I
Right.
pull from this, right? So there was this quote inside this book. There was this quote inside this book that during our healing circles we would use as a point of reference for our community, and it was always so profound, and I mean like so profound where it really had me like, this is something that most folks don't know or don't hear. And I'm gonna read it real quick. This is
Mm-hmm.
what it says. It says, community is the spirit, the guiding light of the tribe, whereby people come together in order to fulfill a specific purpose, to help others fulfill their purpose, and to take care of one another. The goal of community is heard and is properly given the gifts he or she has brought into this world. Without this giving, the community dies. And without the community, the individual is left without a place where he or she can contribute. The community is that grounding place where people come and share their gifts and receive from others. So this quote was like a kind of like an anchor, if you will, for when we were going through this training. And that quote came from that book. And so this book, Spirit of Intimacy by Saban Fusame, who has transitioned now, and the book that she gave me was the copy that was signed by Saban Fusame, who at the time I didn't know was her mentor, right? So, and had recently passed away. So now she's giving me this book. So now I'm like I'm connecting the dots like, oh, that's why she didn't want to let the book go. And see,
Right.
this is what happened, Janice. I jumped to the middle of the book to read the quote in a healing circle. But one day I'm sitting in my office. I said, man, let me start at the beginning. I open the book and see the note that is
Mm-hmm.
written to Rita Alfred from Saban Fusame. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, she's giving me her signed copy of her mentor. And that's how much she believes that I'm going to continue this work. And so I'm Impact Healing Circles were born there. It was this process of like, now I want folks to experience what I felt in that room with those folks. Different walks of life, different cultures, different backgrounds. I want to bring this back to where I work. And I think that everybody, every school site should have this work, should implement this because so many of us are showing up to work broken. or hurt or dealing with trauma. And so me, myself, some of us are working so much to avoid that trauma, that hurt, right, that pain. So what I realized is that if I can, and what ended up happening was I'm doing circles. People loving it, right? People loving it. Like, oh, this made me feel so good. Tears are being shed. But then if I gotta be transparent, I realized that I wasn't utilizing it myself. I wasn't modeling or practicing, right, these practices, these agreements, these values that we have within the space. I wasn't being authentic and living it out, right? I wasn't practicing what I preach. So that led me to actually beginning to go inward. Like, what's going on with Nathan inside, right? Again, self awareness, social emotional learning, and self awareness and self management allowed me to be able to peek, right, to look in. But restorative justice, and it's defined, right, how Miss Reed Alfred defined it in our training, which is like to address a need or anytime there's been harm done, right, in any type of community, the goal is to put things as right as possible, right? Or if there's a need that's not being met, to be able to address that need. And so when we think about restorative justice, we view we think of fear-based responses, decline in good behavior, those we start to see that there needs to be some restorative practices done. And the I Am Impact Healing Circles are an intentional invitation into dialogue and exploration. And I would say more recently, the exploration part has been something me and my business partner, have been more dissecting and going a little bit deeper. It's because we've been very intentional with the dialogue part, but now it's like the exploration of what communities need. So if we're talking to Janice and her community, what is that? We're going to have that intentional dialogue, but then let's explore to figure out what else is needed from the ground up. Because typically in our educational spaces, they're built from the top down, right? Like, hey, we're going to come and tell you in your program, you need to do as social emotional learning. You need to do tennis. You need to do karate. You're like, my kids don't even like karate, right? They don't like tennis. So let's build community from the ground up.
You know what? You are absolutely right, Nathan. I can't tell you how many times I've been in organizations where we've gotten instructions from higher administration about some of the things that we need to implement in programming, but it's not exactly what the community needs at that point in time. And the intention may be good, or it may be coming from a good place, or it may be something that's being popularly done now, but it doesn't mean that it serves the community well. So I completely understand what you're saying. You got to see what the people on the ground need in order for you to continually be successful as an organization. So hold that thought. This is a good place for us to go ahead and transition into Professionals Lounge. Professionals Lounge is a segment of the show that allows guests to share advice and tips with other practitioners in the out of school time and youth development field about how they can begin growing their gifts and talents, but also developing themselves as professionals in the field. Without further ado, here is our Professionals Lounge conversation. My next question for you is for people that wanted to do more in social emotional learning and restorative justice. Like, what are some of the steps they need to take in order to apply it to where they are?
Absolutely. One, I always give shout out to Castle, CASDL, right? Going to the website, castle.org, getting your start there, right? Just getting familiar with the competencies of SEL. And then when it comes to, restorative practices, I would say take a moment and just look at what's going on in the world, right? We look at everything that's going on. We look at our criminal justice system. We look at our school system, right? It's doing what it's supposed to do, the way it was created. But the folks who are in it, us, me and you, folks who are trying to affect change and make a difference, see that we're facing opposition. And so we look and see that there's a need for something different. So for me, and I would encourage folks who want to get into this work, who want to get familiar with it, is just to explore, right? To learn, like, how can I be more present when I show up, right? And then looking at the competencies of SEL, starting with just spend some time with self-awareness and self-management. Like, what's going on inside of me, right? That's if you got a minute just to breathe, right? To be like, I didn't even know I was out of breath. Like, I just needed to breathe, right? Or learning to use it in your personal life. So I would say for folks who want to get started, start with yourself by just spending time and being, when it comes to restorative justice, and restorative practices to yourself, being kind to yourself, right? Asking yourself, what is it that you need? When you think about, there's some decisions that you're making, like for me, I'll say, oh man, man, you really need to do this better. Like, and so, but I start asking myself also, like, but Nate, why are you making those decisions? Why do you keep coming back to that? What's causing you to keep going back to that same situation or that same style, or like understanding, like going deeper with myself? Because a lot of times we just say, oh, well, why, you just do that because whatever it may reason, like you just bored, or that's like, but what's causing you to be bored, right? What are some things that you can do that will cause you not to be bored, so that you, when you are bored, so that you're not bored, to go cause yourself to do that, make that decision or that poor choice, right? When it comes to finances, or jumping in a relationship, professional, or like, again, platonic or romantic, whatever it may be, asking yourselves some of those restorative questions, and how does this help you? Is this the best thing for you? And I think that's one of my, favorite questions to ask myself and other folks is this what's best? Because good, we can always justify good.
Right.
But best, when we're honest with ourselves, right? You can't, is this what's best for you? Right? Nate, chips, Kit Kat, vanilla, right? Hey, is it good? Yeah, because it's on sale. I justify it. But is it what's best for you? Absolutely not, because I'm trying to lose weight.
Oh my gosh, it's you know what, you hit it right on the head. What may be good, what you feel like is good for you may not be the best for you. So taking those things into account. But Nathan, thank you so much for coming on the show, sir. I need to have you come back sometime soon.
Absolutely. It's been my pleasure. I'm so glad that we were able to make it happen. And yeah, let me know. You let me know. I definitely will come back.
Awesome. So go ahead and give everybody your plug-in information if they're looking for you and they want to follow you.
Absolutely. So you can find me on Instagram at I_am_impact. You can find me on Facebook, my business page, #IamImpact. You will see this logo. You will see me on the page as well. You can go to nathanhouston.com and check out more scheduling with me. If you want to just learn more about the resources that I have or build relationship and community, let me know. I'm here. And Janice, I want to say thank you for having me. And I love what you're doing for our field of after school hours, because our young people need space and our staff needs spaces to be able to decompress and share and be able also to sharpen one another. So thank you for the work that you're doing.
Oh, don't make me cry out here. Don't make me cry. But thank you. I honor that and I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Well, everyone, that brings us to the end of our show. I'd like to thank Nathan for being such an awesome guest. Hopefully we could do this again sometime soon. Actually, we do have an IG Live planned for this Friday, September 30th at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, or if you're on the East Coast, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, for those of you that are on this side of the river. Hopefully, you'll be able to join us as we dig a little bit deeper into this conversation about social emotional learning and restorative justice and how we could continue to apply it to our practice. If you enjoyed this episode and feel you received some good information, give us a review on Apple Podcasts or visit the Podchaser website and leave us a comment. This will help us get some feedback on the show and collect testimonials for our personal website. Share us with your friends, share us with your family, share us with your network. Help us spread the word about how OST programming is impacting our communities, but also impacting our youth. We can be found at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Podcast Addict, and all other podcasting platforms. Well, that's all I have for today. In the words of Mr. Arthur Ashe, start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. Until next time, bye-bye.